This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, welcome to the PowerShell presentation portability. My name is Hüseyin Ekşi. I've been working as an analyst at BGA Security for about 1 year. I've got some certificates along the way. And today, as a security analyst, I'll talk about PowerShell. This is the content I made for this presentation. I'll talk about PowerShell, some use cases, keywords, attack types, log types, and a quick demo at the end. So let's start. What is PowerShell? PowerShell is made of three main components: system management, automation.dll, which is the core of PowerShell functionality, PowerShell exe, the host process that loads the DLL, and the MC interface, which allows applications like PowerShell to integrate with anti-malware products like Windows Defender. I want to go through the detail of components and bore you to death. PowerShell is a command line shell and scripting language designed for system administration. It's core component of Windows operating system and cannot be removed. Designed to make remote access and automation easier. It provides direct access to .NET framework, and it's available to all users by default. Now, since we are interested in PowerShell attacks, why are adversaries interested in PowerShell? Because it's already built in and signed legal application. It can access various Windows APIs. It can run code on memory. Of course, there is PowerShell remoting, which you can access and run code on remote desktops. Easy to obfuscate, and PowerShell can be summoned with anything: .bat, document, HTA, exe, XLS, you name it. It uses living off the land techniques, which makes it harder to detect. It's a fileless attack type, which is new. And many sysadmins trust PowerShell and uses it on their day-to-day operations. Now let's get to the intro. Let's talk about PowerShell attacks. How does a PowerShell attack start with? You have got a malicious Office document being used as a phishing attack, and it has macros in it. Normally, we as Blue Team members would never click that, but you can't expect normal users to do. They'll click anything. But hackers step up their game and hack legal firms and send mails to other victim company users as of them. So we can't blame users too much because of that. What happens when they click? Macros become enabled, and that runs VBA. It's just as powerful as any executable. In this example, calling Windows API to download a file, run that file. Now you've got more malware on the system. Usually these things are stagers. They are not the full attack. They just enable further attacks. A PowerShell attack is similar to this, but instead of encoding the payload as executable, which always works, they are encoding as a PowerShell command. A great research made on this topic was from Palo Alto. They do email and endpoint protection. And when they saw a compromise using PowerShell encoded commands, so a PowerShell attack, how did that start with? It never started. It traced back, and they saw this person got an exe, or they've got a malicious document, or they opened an XLS format file. But today's goal is to learn and detect malicious PowerShell commands using PowerShell logs. Let's get to it. Starting with PowerShell execution policy, which is usually seen on malicious PowerShell commands. There are 5 policies available: restricted, all signed, unrestricted, remote signed, and bypass. On malicious scripts, we'll see unrestricted execution policies or bypass strings on command line. Execution policy is not intended as a security policy. It prevents normal users to execute scripts by default. And these are the 2 examples of it: PowerShell exe, execution policy bypass, or you can run it with no profile. So let's get to the arguments. Let's see some of the most generic arguments used in PowerShell. On most cases, malicious scripts uses these to avoid detection or bypass local policies. PowerShell automatically adds asterisks at the end of each string. So ENC or encode or encoded com is the same. I'll talk about two more things in here. In most of the malicious scripts, there is system.net.web client, which is used to download or receive files, and the IX expression, which runs a specified string as a command and returns the value. PowerShell is mostly used for downloader. System.net web client can be used to download file, but what else can be used instead of this? I've got 3 more examples for it. Invoke web request, bits transfer, auth NetSockets, but web client is the most common way to do it. Now, PowerShell lateral movement keywords. There are multiple methods to run PowerShell commands on a remote Windows computer or remote computer. It can be a Linux too. With these methods, adversaries can move laterally on network. For example, invoke command, enter PS session, VMI. Another way to be persistent on a system is using scheduled tasks or running startup scripts on system boot. These are the examples for each one. Obfuscation. This is the fun part. So many of us have seen PowerShell scripts encoded with just base64. There are multiple obfuscation methods too. You can change variables, use XOR or BXOR encoding, or you can use just $signs to write something, but don't get intimidated because the obfuscation isn't that hard, and most of the time you won't need it. This is the $sign, and this is just a Marabolar string. And I'll give you some tips which I use as a checklist when deciding a script or a command line is malicious or not. If a PowerShell script uses base64 encoded commands in their argument, or a PowerShell script or PowerShell exe downloading something from the internet or makes any network connection locally, or a PowerShell script adding a scheduled task in the system, or it's running unrestricted execution policy, or PowerShell is running as a Windows hidden service. These are the red flags you should look for. It seems pretty dangerous to enable PowerShell on systems, but can we block PowerShell? Well, PowerShell exe is our console application. We don't necessarily need to start PowerShell exe to execute code directly. There are multiple ways to run code on PowerShell run space, which I just did with cmd exe to call PowerShell exe. Let's move to constraint language mode. Constraint, no, this is downgrade attacks. Downgrade attacks is used for hiding because PowerShell 2.0 doesn't have the cool features of PowerShell 5. It has poor logging method, and none of the advanced security features like transcription logs or script log logging are enabled in PowerShell 2.0. And the constraint PowerShell language mode, in short, it locks down the nice features of PowerShell usually required for complex attacks to be carried out. On the left, I can't make a mathematical equation, and on the right, I can do it. So let's move on. But this is easily bypassed via downgrading to PowerShell version 2 or playing with PowerShell run spaces. PowerShell v5 log types. Now, there are multiple log methods, but we will focus on the script log logging, especially because some of the log methods are very high in volume, which makes you blind and you can't find what you're looking for. Let's move on to demo. I've already pre-recorded this. Hi, this is the demo video of PowerShell Blue Team presentation. Today I'm going to test 2 obfuscated commands on PowerShell and look at logs and what we can see. So let's start with first command, which is just writing Marabolar. Let's refresh it. on script log logging, which is event ID 1404, we can see our command line. Let's move on to the second object, which is we are using system.web client to download something, and we are outputting to see test.png. Let's run it. Let's refresh the event logs. So this is our command line. Now, I've already filtered some of the logs because there are tons of logs available if you don't filter them. And my original idea was to use atomic red teams tests, but even if you use the Mimikatz, like Mimikatz, you'll get 55 megabytes of logs, which is huge, and I couldn't share it with you. But instead of looking at the logs, what you should do is looking at your EDR, like Carbon Lake or FireEye or Sentinel-1, what you use in your organization. It will give you the command line and the obfuscated string, and you can move on. Thank you for listening. That's all. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer it.
Okay, Genco, thanks for your effort and